What's up guys, Blade Master here, gonna be bringing you a massive 2v2 battle that I fought in Total War Rome 2. We are going with a double Roxolani combined Confederacy tribe force in Nemetocenna, and we're fighting up against the Roman-Dacian alliance. The Roman-Dacian alliance, of course, comprising of the Romans and Getae. So think of it as sort of an ahistorical battle. The Roxolanians have conquered most of the steppe, basically, threatening to invade Rome, which has also conquered most of Greece and Upper Greece, and they have turned to their allies in Getae to help them out in to stop this huge Roxolani force. So the Roxolanis, it's an interesting faction, just like the rest of the nomads. The one thing that really separates the Roxolanians from the rest of the nomads is that they have the cheapest cavalry unit that has access to Draco in the Sarmatian horsemen. Sarmatian horsemen cost around 550, I believe, and are a decent enough mid-tier cavalry unit, but on the, if they were available for a faction that had access to better infantry, or any infantry for that matter, they could be pretty useful. For a faction like Roxolani, not too useful besides popping Draco and then dying. And the fact is, Roxolani trades access to cheap Draco for lack of very strong shock cavalry options. They don't have any good Saka Cataphracts or something like that. They only have one good. They have the Steppe Noble Lances, which is of course a very strong unit. But they have very good melee, very elite melee cavalry unit in the Sarmatian Royal Lance, Sarmatian Royal Horsemen or whatever, which at the end of the day will pale in comparison to an elite shock cavalry unit. So I'm playing with Bobby from the Elder clan. We are fighting up against Celcidus. And I forget, I'll edit this in, I'll edit the text on the video to include the other player's name. I forget who it was. So here you can see my steppe horse archers. I'm not doing a good job of, in the early game, of microing with some of them. I baited some volleys of ammunition, volleys from these auxiliary balearic slingers, but for the most part not doing too good. For our armies, for our combined armies, you know, we've brought a lot of horse archers, just a fuck ton of horse archers. The way we split it off was my ally Bobby was going to bring a lot of the more heavily armored horse archers, and I told him to keep them in reserve, and I would bring a lot of the cheaper horse archers, and he of course has brought 3 of them as well. So I'm going to use mine to try and bait some volleys off of these Dacian skirmishers and Dacian bowmen, pulling back a bit too late, getting shot at by the Dacian heavy bowmen. This is terrible micro here from my part. Besides that, I've also brought a lot of melee cavalry. He's brought a decent number. Oh, sorry, the Sarmatian riders are the cheap ones. They are the really cheap ones. I think they're 300 talents or something. So yeah, they'll just die very quickly, but can be very useful that way. Not in dying, but can be very useful in popping Draco and then dying. So got some Sarmatian Royal Lancers. These guys are very heavy shock. Wow, I've been completely off my knowledge in this so far. I mean, these guys are very good. Sarmatian Royal Lancers are very good. I just don't think they're they're as good as Saka Cataphracts or anything. So we've got Steppe Noble Lances here, got some Sarmatian Royal Lances on the left flank, pretty heavy in quality. On the left hand side, in the middle we've got a lot of mid-tier melee cavalry and only one Sarmatian Royal Lancer general. Of course, my Sarmatian Royal Lancer general is all the way back. So the meat of our army in the middle is comprised mainly of numbers, but not of quality. We're trying to definitely overwhelm the flanks with Sarmatian Royal Lancers over here, Steppe Noble Lancers over there. And of course, we're getting an early surround on the Dacian-Roman alliance. We've got some Dacian heavy bowmen here. We've got a couple of Dacian bowmen here. And it looks like some skirmishers for some reason. He's brought the Dacian skirmishers. These are very cheap but very, low-range javelin units. My Mercenary Amazonian riders here getting slaughtered by Dacian heavy bowmen. Terrible use. Gotta keep saying that because it's just such bad use of horse archers early game. Besides that, he's brought a questionable choice in a lot of noble swords. He's brought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noble swords, and he's brought a lot of heavy spears. Heavy spears are an okay unit, cannot be used solely against against a combined force of so many nomadic tribes, nomadic units. Would definitely have should have brought armored spears and noble spears as well. Besides that, for Rome, we've got a bunch of Avocadi cohort, which is very strange. Would not recommend. Vigiles, only a couple of Triarii, but crucially, he's got some auxiliary ballistic slingers. I think he's brought all three. He's got a levies here and a general and bodyguard. Here, popping Draco for the first time, charging in, getting a great charge in with the Sarmatian Royal Lancers. And here, Draco, without Draco, the heavy spears won't do too much. It removes 15 from their bonus versus cavalry. Here, Sarmatian Royal Lancers haven't taken a single casualty. Well, taken one, and they destroyed a lot of the noble swords. But the Sarmatian horsemen, meanwhile, have gotten slaughtered by mainly the Dacian skirms. Here, using the cheap Sarmatian rider to get another charge in on the noble swords on the left flank. In the center, Sarmatian steppe noble lances are going to just destroy these heavy spears, especially since they are not in shield wall or shield screen. We are losing a fair few men here, but we're getting into some decent positions so far. Some of my steppe horse archers have died, or maybe they're my allies, probably mine. Here, going to come in for a second charge with the Sarmatian Royal Lancers against the noble swords, and I'm pulling back my cheaper Sarmatian riders. I think they popped a second Draco here, and then just going to absolutely slaughter the noble swords. They're already down to 52 men. They're going to get destroyed now. Meanwhile, there is just a second consecutive charges in by Bobby with his steppe noble lances. They're going to take some precursor volleys. I can see why he brought the Dacian skirmishers now. He brought the Dacian skirmishers because his spears don't have any precursor javelins, so he tried to compensate for that by bringing precursors among the Dacian skirms. But the problem is the Dacian skirms can be very easily caught, and once they do get caught, their morale is not going to let them last long. Noble Swords General at full strength, but he is moving out of his little comfortable zone. That is terrible, and that means these steppe noble lancers are going to get a beautiful charge. And actually, it wasn't great, but should do the job. One of the noble swords already destroyed. I've done infinitely better with my shock cavalry compared to my use of my bow cavalry. Meanwhile, we're not really concentrating too much on the Romans. We're just getting a couple of sneaky charges here and there, just to make sure they don't they're preoccupied and they don't come in to support the Gedai, who's just getting completely surrounded and slaughtered. Noble Swords General here down to 130 men. They're not going to like getting rear charge there. Here, the Sarmatian horsemen are going to charge into the last heavy spears. One of the heavy spears is still supporting, actually, but heavy spears isolated like that won't do too much. Steppe horse archers caught some of the Dacian skirms, and here this steppe armored lancer has caught some of the Dacian bowmen. And again, crucially coming in for a second charge with my Sarmatian royal lancers, who are still at full strength, going to hit the rear of the noble swords, going to do a huge amount of damage there. Steppe armored lancers down to 66 men. And it looks like we've dispatched Gedai pretty easily, pretty comfortably. Only now has one of the Avocadi cohort come in to support. And Bobby's Sarmatian Royal Lancer looked like he was about to get a second charge on the noble swords there. But it looks like, I think we're just going to, we've turned off fire at will with all of our horse archers. And it looks like we should be just starting to take some shots onto the noble swords general. Here, Sarmatian horsemen going to charge into the noble swords. Pop Draco removes bracing. They're going to take quite a bit more casualties than they would otherwise. Here, Sarmatian Royal Lancers, oh, they're just so deadly. When combined with Draco, they just pounce onto noble swords and Dacian skirmishers. Sarmatian horsemen left in this battle for a bit too long, but they've gotten a decent number of kills here. And here I'm using my steppe armored lances to not only hold down the Avocadi cohort, but also get a rear charge when Draco is popped. Won't get any kills off of it, but will do critical hit point damage. Here Draco popped again with the Sarmatian rider, I believe. The last remaining Sarmatian rider does a really good job by popping Draco before dying. And then my Sarmatian royal lance is going to probably come in for the third charge. And then this is a full strength noble sword that just gets flattened on the charge against Sarmatian Royal Lancers. So those kills are going to they're going to rack up really quickly. So noble swords down to 59 men. Meanwhile, we've been pouncing into the rear of the Dacian skirmish line and just catching them with mercenary Amazonian riders and steppe armored lancers. Dacian heavy bowman on precision shot, going to get quite a few kills on the mercenary Amazonian riders, but this Sarmatian Royal Lancer is coming in, and it's looking really, really dangerous against these Dacian bowmen, these Dacian heavy bowmen. Actually, no, they're just standing there providing morale support. That missed micro though. The Noble Sword General is down to 72 men and has actually done a fairly decent job, but this is really not what he's going to like. The amount of arrows that is going to be piercing the bums of these Noble Swords is just a sight to behold, and I need to take a screenshot of this. Let's put this in slow motion. Oh yes, this is... yeah. Ah, shit. Because critically, this is what is going to kill off one of the enemy generals. So the mercenary, the armored horse archers pulled up by Bobby, just going to do an amazing job against these heavy spears. Holy shit. God damn, just slaughtered so many of them in one volley. Noble Swords General still hasn't died, 48 men left. But now it's only the Romans left. Basically, the Noble Swords General down to 42. Going to get charged at by a Sarmatian Royal Lancer. The General, oh, just going to crash into them. Some friendly fire, a little bit of friendly fire so far, but he should be fine. Just going to completely destroy the Noble Swords and the heavy spears. Pops Draco as well. Bit too late. But the Noble Swords here dead. Sarmatian Royal Lancers for me have done brilliantly so far. Actually, they are a very good unit. They are a very decent shock cavalry unit. Makes Roxolani, in my opinion, the second best nomadic. Like, I think, in my opinion, the best is Masakatai. Second best is Roxolani. And then comes Royal Scythia. Despite Royal Scythia's access to so many horse archers, it's very overrated. Because at the end of the day, you know, these guys have, you know, the most cost-effective versions. In these guys have the most cost-effective versions in the mercenary Amazonians and the Scythian horse archers. You don't really need anything other than them. So yeah, in that sense, you know, the mercenary, the Roxolani and the Masagatai have both of these versions, and they are thus very good because they have much better shock cavalry options. Here, going to charge into Noble Swords, completely destroy them. Step Noble Lancers. Not nearly as deadly as the Sarmatian Royal Lancers, because I think the Sarmatian Royal Lancers have the elite lance. They've got a slightly better charge, but more importantly, they have 90 armor and 110 health, which vastly improves their staying power, their stayability. So now it's only up to the Romans. Do the Romans have enough against so many? We've lost the Roxolanians have lost quite a fair bit of men, but most importantly, the Royal Lancers' staying power in their high armor and high health has allowed most of them to remain alive, and not only alive, but hale and healthy. Basically, a lot of them are at full strength, just like this one here. But we've lost a lot of our missile power. That's the problem. We have a couple of mercenary Amazonian riders that have kept in reserve. We have a lot of the armored horse archers here that is just taking care of this last Abakari cohort that was sent to help out the... they've actually done a very good job. 114 kills. And besides that, yeah, we don't have much. It's time to just encircle. And it's time for the Romans to turtle up. Leve is not going to, definitely not going to do much. The Balearic Slingers have already done a fair bit of damage. Those, you know, little melees that we did with the cavalry, of course, they were never going to do much, but they were just intended to hold out the Romans and not let them reinforce. Another reason why I'm really starting to love Rome 2 2v2s. So Auxiliary Balearic Slinger is going to take rear shots. Going to get shot in the rear by Mercy Amazonian Riders by Bobby. Not exactly the best option right now. I would fire at maybe the Triarii from the sides of the Triarii. Triarii are crucially kept only in one direction. Hashtag pop songs. Hashtag pop group. Here, whereas there are a couple of Vigiles that are going to be pretty critical meat shields, And this is a very interesting box here done by the Romans, because this almost means that there is no easy way for us to charge in, because say for example we charge in here, we will only be hitting the small flank of this Evocati, therefore nullifying a large part of our charge. Most of the charge will hit the Vigiles. So in that sense, not having a perfect circle and instead making this sort of like pentagonal weird structure could very well help the Romans. But at the end of the day, it is a bit too big. So there are very clear zones that we can just charge in, like over here and over here. And once we get in there, we're going to get all up in that Roman ass. Like, there's just nothing that they can really do. So let's just fast forward until the, you know, the inevitable occurs. So it looks like one step armored lance is going to start the charge in, absorb some Pila, get a proper charge in on the Evocati, critically catch a lot of the Balearic slingers in the process. And the step armored lancer is dead. They've gotten 204 kills, basically paid for themselves. Now the Sarmatian riders are going to come in, and they're going to pop Draco. And they've popped Draco on a fuck ton of units. And the same thing here, Bobby up front, Blade Master in the rear, popping Draco, removes bracing on all the Evocati cohort, and then the Sarmatian Royal Lancers are going to come in and just going to smash into all of those Vigiles and all of that Evocati. And just the kills are really going to rack up so quickly. Even against Triaria. The Triaria have only lost like 6 units. But against Evocatis, those Evocatis are just not going to stand anything. Meanwhile, the General Bodyguard, great job by Bobby targeting the General Bodyguard. They're losing quite a few men here. And this is just a clusterfuck. And it's a clusterfuck that the Steppe Noble Lancers and the Sarmatian Royal Lancers are just witnessing critically instead of participating. Sarmatian Royal Lancers here pulling out, but they're taking quite a fair bit of casualties here. And here the Sarmatian Royal Lancers look to be getting a very decisive rear charge on the Triaria. A bit of miss micro here by the Roman player, and the Triaria are going to lose a lot of men. I'm going to immediately pull out with the Sarmatian Royal Lancers. They clearly haven't taken too many casualties. But a consecutive charge in here by the second Sarmatian Royal Lancers, stopped by its own unit a little bit, but they are still going to get a fair few casualties on the Triarii. So my general, full strength, gets 106 kills on his first charge basically. Still some Evocati remain. Some of the Evocatis, some of the veteran legionaries here taking frontal shots from mercenary Amazonian riders. But we still have way enough ammunition to destroy all of these units by itself. But on top of that, we also have a lot of shock cavalry. So the Triarii here is going to take, not going to get too many casualties because some of the cavalry were stopped by their own men and stopped by dying Triarii, which meant that it wasn't a compact unit, and that meant that we didn't get as many kills off of the impact. Here using Cantabrian Circle because we don't have to be afraid of any enemy skirmishers, and that means the reload rates will be slightly higher, and just optimizing my mercenary Amazonian riders that way. Now popping Flaming Shot clearly, coming in for another rear charge with the Sarmatian Royal Lancer. This one is going to pay off massive dividends because it hits some of the auxiliary Balearic slingers as well. So popping Flaming Shot here, both the generals in. My general getting a fair bit of kills there, and then critically we're going to try and pair that in with a rear charge from this Sarmatian Royal Lancer. Now popping Whistling Shot as well. So that means a lot of these veteran legionaries are just going to waver and rout at 103 men. It's just the massive amount of stacking of morale penalties, and that is it. The Roxolanian Confederacy has managed to win this. Well played to Celcidas and his ally Melatonino. You can see the Sarmatian riders didn't do much, weren't meant to do much, but they played a critical role in allowing me to use Draco multiple times. Steppe Armored Lancers, one of them did pretty decently. Sarmatian Royal Lancers for the most part carried this game for me. Steppe Horse Hatches, poor from me. Oh, actually, this is Bobby. Sorry, terrible commentary. So the Sarmatian Royal Lancers did well for Bobby. Or wait, that was me. God damn it. Yeah, fine. Yeah, that's whatever. So here, Bobby. Let's see. His Steppe Noble Lancers did okay. The Steppe Noble Lancers are a good like auxiliary unit. You always want your primary unit to be you always want your, in my opinion, you'd want your nomad army to be sort of split 50-50 between quality and quantity, which might not be the case for a regular army. With Rome or Boyai, you kind of want it to be tilting much more in the favor of quantity because they have very good low tier units. But that's not the case with the steppe noble lancers, because the steppe noble lancers are a decent unit, but only as a supporting troop. Their lack of armor makes them not good as a first charge, like a first wave lancer, like a first wave charger. You always want them to be in the second wave of charging in. Meanwhile, for Salcidas, bringing this army, I can see why he brought the Dacian skirmishers. It was a risk that ultimately didn't really pay off. Should have brought some more noble spears and stuff instead. Melatonino absolutely should have brought many more Triarii and not Evocati. Clearly, they didn't do too much. They didn't do a good enough job. Anyways, guys, that's the end of this battle. Hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for more. Peace.